Pope Tagle's blessed Ascension, the crowning moment of first Filipino Pope. The historic day had arrived. Beneath the grand sky of Rome, the city pulsed with a certain energy, an excitement felt by all who stood in the shadow of St. Peter's Basilica. People from all corners of the world had gathered for a momentous occasion that would forever alter the course of history, especially for the Philippines. On this day, the world was about to witness the elevation of Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle to the papacy, making him the first Filipino Pope. It was a day not only of celebration, but of profound significance. For this ascension was more than just the appointment of a new leader. It was the crowning of a moment that brought together faith, heritage, and the aspirations of millions across the globe. As the sun glinted off the ancient stones of St. Peter's Square, the faithful from every nation stood in reverence, their hearts beating in unison. The anticipation was palpable, a feeling that surged through the crowd as they looked toward the skies. The white smoke, rising from the chimney of the Sistine Chapel, symbolized the completion of the papal conclave. It was a signal to the world that a new pope had been chosen. The sound of jubilant cheers echoed from St. Peter's Square, and the faithful knew their prayers had been answered. Their long wait was over. This moment, so full of emotion and unity, marked the culmination of days filled with prayers, deliberations, and an unspoken promise that the Catholic Church would continue its journey with a new shepherd. The faithful had waited with bated breath for this announcement, and now, with the smoke rising, the world knew the decision had been made. The person who had been chosen to lead over 1.3 billion Catholics worldwide was none other than Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle. For the people of the Philippines, this was a moment of immense pride. It was not just a man chosen to lead the church, but one of their own, a son of Manila, who had risen to the highest position in the Catholic faith. In the streets of Manila, across the islands and beyond, the news spread like wildfire. Celebrations were spontaneous. Flags waved, songs were sung, and prayers of thanksgiving were offered. The heart of the Philippines was bursting with joy as the Filipino people recognized the significance of this moment, not only for their nation, but for the entire Catholic world. For those gathered in St. Peter's Square, this was not merely the election of a new pope. It was the beginning of a new era. Pope Tagle's election represented a connection to the Church's past, present, and future. As the bells of St. Peter's Basilica rang out across Rome, the sound was not just a call to celebrate the election of a new pope, but a reminder that the mission of the Church was eternal. The bell's joyous peal brought comfort and unity as the faithful paused to reflect on the momentous event unfolding before them. As the world waited, eyes fixed on the crimson curtains of the balcony, the question on everyone's mind was, who would appear to guide the Catholic Church? The anticipation grew, with every second feeling like an eternity. Then the curtains parted, and there he was, Pope Luis Antonio Tagle, bathed in the golden light of the afternoon sun. Standing before the world, his presence radiated humility, hope, and strength. His first words, spoken to the gathered masses in St. Peter's Square, would set the tone for his papacy. A moment of joy and solemnity was shared by millions as they looked to Pope Tagle for leadership and inspiration. Born in Manila in 1957, Cardinal Tagle had spent decades devoted to the Church and its mission. From a young age, his compassion for the marginalized and his dedication to social justice had shaped his ministry. He was a man who walked among the people, listened to their concerns, and tirelessly worked to make the world a better place. His heart for service and his love for the poor had won him admiration from all corners of the globe. It was no surprise, then, that he would rise to such a distinguished position in the Church. As the Archbishop of Manila, Tagle was known for his deep faith and commitment to his community. His ministry was not just about preaching from the pulpit, but about engaging with people in their everyday lives. He understood their struggles, their joys, and their hopes. Whether it was through social justice initiatives or pastoral care, Pope Tagle was a shepherd who truly cared for his flock. His journey to the papacy was one of faith and service, but it was also one of transformation. He was a scholar, a theologian, and a leader who had always sought to understand the complexities of the world and its challenges. His academic pursuits were not just for knowledge's sake, but as a means to connect the teachings of the Church to the real-world issues faced by the faithful. Tagle's love for the gospel was apparent in everything he did, from his eloquent sermons to his personal interactions with those he encountered. He believed deeply in the power of connection, and that belief was reflected in his actions. Whether he was speaking to a small group in a parish or addressing a large audience at a global event, his authenticity and compassion shone through. For the Filipino people, Tagle's elevation to the papacy was a moment that transcended religion. It was a moment of national pride, one that honored the deep faith of the Filipino people and their unwavering devotion to the Church. Pope Tagle was not only a son of the Philippines, but a shepherd of the world. His journey from the streets of Manila to the highest office in the Catholic Church was a testament to the power of faith, dedication, and service. As Pope Tagle stood on the balcony of St. Peter's Basilica, his eyes swept over the sea of faces in the crowd. Each face held a story, a prayer, a hope. And for every Filipino watching, this moment held a deeper meaning. For them, Pope Tagle was not just a religious leader. He was a symbol of what could be achieved through faith, humility, and service. He was a beacon of hope, not only for the Church but for the world. Inside St. Peter's Basilica, the ceremony to officially inaugurate Pope Tagle was filled with deep reverence. The ancient ritual, held beneath the majestic ceiling painted by Michelangelo, was a moment of hallowed transformation. The air in the basilica was thick with incense, and the sunlight streaming through the stained glass windows created a kaleidoscope of colors upon the marble floors. This sacred space, having witnessed centuries of history, now bore witness to a new chapter in the Church's story. Pope Tagle, clad in simple white vestments, walked slowly toward the papal altar, his face a picture of humility and purpose. With each step, he seemed to carry the weight of the moment, the weight of history, and the weight of his responsibility. As he knelt in prayer, seeking guidance from God, the cardinals who had gathered around him one by one laid their hands upon his head. This act, known as the laying on of hands, was steeped in tradition and marked the transfer of spiritual authority. It was a powerful symbol of the continuity of the Church, a sign that the legacy of the apostles was being passed on to a new leader. The significance of this moment was not lost on those present. The hands of the cardinals, resting gently upon Pope Tagle's head, carried with them the weight of centuries of faith and devotion. This moment was not just a ceremonial act. It was a profound connection to the past, a bridge linking the present to the time of the apostles. As Pope Tagle stood there, receiving the mantle of leadership, he knew that he was now the bearer of an ancient tradition. In that moment, as the cardinals stepped back and the basilica stood in hushed reverence, it was clear that the weight of the world rested on Pope Tagle's shoulders. But in that same moment, there was a sense of grace, a divine strength that flowed through him. His journey had been one of service and faith, and now, as Pope, he was ready to embrace the challenges and opportunities that lay ahead. The anointing with holy oil, a central rite in the papal inauguration, was a final act of consecration. The fragrant oil, representing wisdom, understanding, and divine grace, was a symbol of the sacred duties Pope Tagle was about to undertake. As the oil touched his forehead, he closed his eyes, a serene expression on his face. It was as if the weight of the world, the hopes and anxieties of the faithful, had settled upon him. And yet, in that moment, there was a deep sense of peace, a reminder that he was not alone in this sacred mission. Pope Tagle's papacy was now officially sealed, and the world watched, filled with hope and anticipation. The Filipino faithful, their hearts swelling with pride, saw in their new pope not just a religious leader, but a beacon of light in a world often filled with darkness. As Pope Tagle took his place as the leader of the global Catholic Church, the future seemed full of promise, a future rooted in faith, compassion, and unity. And so, the journey began. The crowning moment of Pope Tagle's ascension was not the end, but the beginning of a new chapter in the history of the Church, a chapter that would be marked by faith, humility, and unwavering commitment to service. The Filipino people had given the world a pope, and the world, in turn, would be forever blessed by his leadership.